So this is what we're making. An overlay ring using gallery wire. And just for fun, I patterned the inside. I'm using sterling 4 millimeters wide, 0.55 thick for the inner part of this ring, because this is 0.5 and this is 0.5, so the material will be 1 millimeter thick when we're done. That's thick enough. And 4 millimeters because the gallery wire is 4 millimeters. So my inside ring diameter is 19 millimeters. I've rolled this through the rolling mill and put a leaf pattern on it because I want that on the inside. And I've cut this to length. It's 62 something. So I'm just going to file the ends, make sure they're nice and flat, form it into a ring, and solder it. Well, I'm going to form it into a bit of an oval. So once you've made your flat ring, the width of your gallery wire, do all of your sanding and finishing, make sure the edges are nice and smooth, and hallmark it now, because if you hallmark it after your gallery wire is on, it will probably put a little flat spot on it, and it'll be difficult to clean it up. So if you do it now, you can tidy up the little bump and you're done. So now, measure the outside of your ring and take an average. So that's 20.17. You can see I turned it 90 degrees. And 20.5. So roughly 20.35. Plus the thickness of your gallery wire times 3.14. So my gallery wire to fit over my ring needs to be 65.5. And this needs to be exact because we want just a light pressure fit. We don't want it tight because when we go to solder it on, if it's tight, chances are the seam will open. So just snug, but not loose. Once you get your gallery wire soldered into a ring, put it on your ring mandrel and round it up, but put the little points up to the small end. That way the big end will fit, the small end will be slightly tucked down, so we make sure it touches the flat ring. And in this case, don't turn it over because we want it to be slightly tapered. So now you're going to put the two rings together and put the solder joins opposite each other. So we just slide that outer one on. So you can see that it's just a gentle push, and you can see that it fits with just the tiniest gap. Now what we can do at this point is we can expand that a little bit just by putting the ring on a steel block and using a dapping punch just to make sure that it fits perfectly against the other ring. I'll show you. Now we want a fairly big punch because we don't want it to go through and hit our plate. perfect. So it didn't take much, and you can see now that it's a perfect fit. So now we can solder it. So I'm just going to flux this top edge because I don't want solder flooding the whole thing on the other side. So I'm just going to flux the edge and put 3 or 4 small pieces of solder just up on that edge. So you can see I've just put the little pieces of solder across the 2 rings. And we don't need a killer flame because the rings are fairly small, but we do need a neutral flame. So we're just going to slowly dry out the flux. And then once the flux is dry, like that, I'm just going to circle the inside of the ring. And if your solder moves, put it back in place with your solder pick. So pay attention. As soon as the solder flows, move your torch away, because what you don't want to do is open up your other joins, your original joins. So there we go. The solder is flowed all the way around, and we're just going to pickle it now, quench it, pickle it, and have a look. Okay, we're out of the pickle. Dry it off, have a look, make sure everything's wonderful. Now, for me, the only cleanup I'm going to do is just a tiny amount on the edge where I put the solder, because I have a pattern on the inside, and when I made the ring with the pattern on the inside, I put the solder on the outside, soldered it, tidied that up, and I have just the tiniest line of solder that I'm not going to do anything to because I don't want to change the pattern. So I'm just going to tidy up the outside because this edge is the only place that there will be visible solder. And if we don't tidy this up, the solder will oxidize at a quicker rate, and you'll have little dark spots on the ring. And if you used a decent amount of solder, there won't be much cleanup. So that's that, and I'm ready to put it in the tumbler. Now, I'm not bothered that the little tips aren't soldered because they're nice and flat against the ring, and when I tumble it, it'll work hard on them, and they shouldn't bend easily. All I wanted to do really was to just hold the outside ring nice and firm against the inside ring, and then everything will be lovely. So now it's just a matter of me putting it in the tumbler. I'm out of the tumbler. You can see I've got this piece of copper looped through the ring. It's just to make it easier to find the small piece. You don't have to do that, but I found that it makes your life a lot easier if you can put it through to save you searching. So dry it off, untwist your wire, have a look. So there's my overlay ring, patterned on the inside, and with very little cleanup. The only solder cleanup I did was just on this edge.